Anyone that's done any research into Palantir understands at this point that Palantir's supposed total addressable market, or TAM, is approximately $120 billion. Palantir's trailing 12-month revenue, at least before the Q2 earnings report, is $1.21 billion. So Palantir stands at around 1% market penetration, so it's pretty evident that as Palantir continues to grow into the market that it has already outlined, that the top line will follow and subsequently the share price, if Palantir figures out the bottom line along the way. That is, of course, not to mention the compression of a high multiple. For instance, right now, Palantir's trailing 12-month revenue multiple is 32 times. That will only compress as the growth does into the future. Palantir has much growth ahead of it, but the larger it gets, the harder it will be able to maintain that growth. So years out, once that growth does start to contract a little bit, the multiple will shrink as well. All that to say is that Palantir has a lot of work ahead of it, achieving the total addressable market that it has set out for, or even a portion of it. But it's pretty clear that the total addressable market of $120 billion will not be enough to make Palantir a trillion or multi-trillion dollar company. So today, I'm going to be diving into how Palantir can effectively double their total addressable market. Let's go. I'm going to be playing a few clips from a great video that I found on how to expand the total addressable market, and I believe Palantir can more than double their total addressable market, but it's worth noting that these changes will not come into effect for a very long time. I've seen other YouTubers touting extremely high share prices that are completely unrealistic, and the truth is that Palantir may very well hit those prices eventually, but I certainly think PLTR stock is a long hold and not one you should be banking on rising drastically in the short term because of the mechanics and fundamentals I will talk about in this video. Regardless, it's worth noting that Palantir's current TAM is very justifiable and something they really need to work towards to achieve and capture even a large percentage of. I said they're at 1% currently, and if they get up to 10%, that would be awesome, and they'd be well on their way, doing about $12 billion in revenue. Management has a target of $4 billion in revenue in 2025, or 4. So I think if Palantir can triple that sometime within this decade, and if they could do $12 billion in revenue by the end of the decade or heading into the next one, I think that would be a pretty great starting place. But currently, with around 2,500 employees, continuing investments in Foundry and Gotham, and an undeniable focus on the top end of the market for enterprise and clandestine clients, it's pretty clear that Palantir does not have the bandwidth, nor the resources, nor the desire currently to address this increased TAM that I will be talking about. So I want to make it clear that these changes, Palantir going after an increased market, will not happen anytime soon, and it shouldn't happen anytime soon. They just released their total addressable market goals last year, and that is what they are going after. Listen to the company, listen to the CEO, listen to management. What they are saying is this is their total addressable market, and they can do very well with it. But now I want to get into what I see as the second phase of growth for Palantir. We have this first phase, which is Gotham, which is Foundry, which is a total addressable market of around $120 billion. So they will try and fill into that as much as they can, but eventually, many years from now, there will come a time when Palantir has enough resources, capital, employees, talent, all of that to expand further. So let's get into that. I'm going to play a clip from a video now. This is the first way any company could increase their TAM. Have a listen.
There may be a time when it might be time for you to increase the size of your total addressable market, which the shorthand for that is TAM. So in the investment banking world or the finance world, they call the TAM the total addressable market. And so when you increase your TAM, you literally increase the size of your opportunity. But in so doing, you also change the nature of your delivery and your prospects. So it's something you should do with a great amount of care. That being said, what I want to do is take you through the 3 ways to increase your total addressable market and some of the considerations around that. All right. So the first way that you can increase your TAM, and this is one that a lot of people don't look at or more afraid of, and this is probably one of the most profitable ways to do it. All right. So the first way is to go upmarket. When the term upmarket, what that means is that if you're in a service business of some kind and you serve a specific avatar. So let's say I helped, salon owners generate customers, whatever. If I wanted to go upmarket, then I would say, okay, think about it like a Christmas tree. Each one of these individual units has people below it and people above it. Above it would be the organizations or conglomerates of these people that I currently have. So can I go after associations? Can I go after franchises? Can I go after licenses or licensors of this type of business model? By doing that and serving those people, I now have changed the nature of my business. So if I'm serving somebody who serves salons, then I go up market. I get another degree of leverage. This typically happens when you have more experience in the field, you have demonstrated results, you have evidence of your efficacy or your systems or your process or whatever it is to add value. This is one of the best ways to gain leverage and instantly sell hundreds of clients at a time.
So it's pretty clear that Palantir cannot move up market anymore. They are working with the government, the literal highest place you can be. They're working with big enterprises. There is no one above Palantir. There's no one for Palantir to supply to. Palantir is the top of the market and they are assessing the top of the market. Just like Tesla and many others have started with high-end products and then worked their way down. Palantir is doing that same sort of thing. There's no way for them to move higher, at least as I see it. So what's the second way that Palantir could expand?
The second way to increase your TAM is to go adjacent. All right, adjacent would be if I'm a salon owner. I'll just use that one as or if I'm serving salon owners. Excuse me. If I wanted to go adjacent, there's a couple different ways I could do this. One is I could go for people who manufacture stuff for salon owners, right? I might go after hair drying companies or chair companies that do the little chairs that they have there. Or it might be the physical product side of the salon business. It could also be a business that's closely related to salon. So I might go after nail salon, right? Or might go after a lash expert or whatever, right? And so this is how I could go adjacent and do the same thing, right? So I give you two different examples there. One is changing the nature of the business. So if I started selling physical products within that same sphere, that would increase the size of my TAM, but I also go direct to consumer. So there's multiple levels of that. The most direct adjacent jump would be going from helping salon owners to helping nail salons, like so a hair salon to a nail salon to a lash salon or whatever, right? So it's carving out these little vertical stripes that are close enough to one another that a lot of the best practices that you've already learned probably apply. And so this is the second way that you can increase the total addressable market that you are serving. And by doing that, if you can triple the amount of customers that you can market to, then you can triple the amount of people that you can sell. You might have an artificial bottleneck. So you feel or you perceive like you can't grow anymore within that space, but you realize that this is a $60 billion space. Well, you probably should keep everything you have the same and add a different channel to it or increase how much you're making per customer.
So I guess what I said earlier about Palantir not addressing more of a market recently in the last few months or so is a little bit incorrect because their partnerships with Microsoft, which is yet to be announced, I believe, Amazon and IBM, those are all adjacent moves as he just talked about, especially Amazon. That's an adjacent move to incorporate Palantir technology into AWS. It's a genius move. It is increasing the TAM, probably not significantly, but it definitely is an adjacent move. Other adjacent moves in the future could include more strategic partnerships that are not specifically just Palantir supplying clients with Foundry, but more SPAC deals or anything like that, or more industrious strategies. So let's have a look at the third one, and this is where it comes into play. This is my whole reason for making this video. I've been talking about this before. This is not a secret. Palantir has alluded to it, but have a listen and I'll come back with my thoughts.
The third way that you can do this is to go down market. Going down market is, let's say use the salon owner example again. If I were going down market, then I would be serving hairstylists, right? So what's one level below the person that I'm currently serving? It would be hairstylists or actual nail polish people, right? And you absolutely can do that. So if I had a certification or something that would help them, be better or service more customers or allow them to charge higher rates because we had a proprietary system around it or whatever, then this would be something that I would be able to sell down market. Typically, what happens if you're thinking about this from a pricing perspective, this is what you're normally charging. This is probably what you're charging times 5 to 10, all right? And this is what you're charging probably divided by 5 to 10. If you think about this, this is much more akin to a pyramid, right? Where you have where you're currently at, you have your down market, and then you have your up market, right? On the top of that. And so making the decision about what to do here, I would say that most people are in this kind of number 2 bucket, right? You are where you're at, you serve who you serve. And most times what you're encountering is an artificial bottleneck. You just have maxed out this particular stream of getting customers. And there are lots of ways to solve that bottleneck. One is by adding another channel. The other way would be increasing the lifetime gross profit per customer so that you can market twice as hard or spend twice as much or 3 times as much on that same channel to acquire more customers. And so one of those is a back-end solution, the other is a front-end solution. Both of them are viable. It depends on where you're at. And the ultimate FU position to have, and this is what, the banking world and what creates real tremendous enterprise value, is something called vertical integration. Vertical integration. And what that means is actually owning all aspects of this supply chain. So for example, if I owned a business that certified, personal trainers and helped them, start their first gym, and then I helped them grow their gym, and then I either had a franchise or I consulted with franchisors and I made recommendations to these people to go into a franchise, then that would be a completely vertically integrated business. Now, I might also own adjacent portions of that. I might own the processing. I might own the CRMs. I might own the physical products that they're selling within that distribution base. And all of these are different ways that you can increase your total addressable market and ultimately the amount of things that you sell. Now, with each of these changes comes tremendous operational complexity. And so if you're going to make one of these switches, I would do so incredibly carefully and make sure that you're not doing the number one mistake that I see all entrepreneurs make, which is thinking that an artificial bottleneck on a channel is a reflection of the bottleneck of the size of their market. All right, it's one of the number one issues that I see. But you may be in a situation where it might be better for you to go down market or go up market, and make sure that when you're doing that, you're addressing the pricing accordingly. You can't go up market and just charge twice as much because there's so many fewer of those customers and they're going to expect a lot more. And to the same degree, and this is one of the biggest mistakes that I've made, I went down market, I adjusted my price accordingly, but I actually kept my service the same. And so it was actually not viable for me because I was putting so much time and effort into people who didn't pay enough.
So it's pretty obvious that since Palantir is starting at the top end, big businesses, Fortune 500 companies, and not medium to smaller size businesses that could unlock Palantir's TAM are not currently being served, not to mention startups or just individuals running a small business. If Palantir was to unveil in the future, again, 5 to 10 to 15 years out, an additional product to move down market, Foundry Light, something else, a lighter, less powerful, less advanced, but more mobile, more agile product that any startup in the world could use to analyze, keep track of, and empower their operations, that would more than double their effective TAM. However, as he mentioned, and his name is Alex, by the way, naturally, catering to these smaller businesses, your prices have to be much less in value. So sure, your market may increase 10 times, but you'll have to charge 5 times less, or maybe even 10 times less, or 15 times less. So that's where I see Palantir effectively pricing themselves much lower because otherwise these companies would not be able to afford, these smaller businesses not be able to afford. We've heard about how expensive Palantir's products are, and it's justifiable because they're the only ones on the market offering what they do. But it's very difficult for a small business to be able to afford Palantir Foundry, and that's what this doubling of the TAM, lower market solution could provide. More access for these smaller businesses to be able to use Palantir's platforms. So many others have jumped to this conclusion as well, but here is why it doesn't necessarily matter in the near term or even the next 5 or 10 years. Palantir is well on its way, as I've talked about, to that $120 billion total addressable market, and no, they will not get all of it, but they're going for big contracts from the government, from big businesses, those that can afford to pay Palantir big money, and that is the smart thing to do at this point. Catering to smaller businesses, sure, the market is much larger, but you have to charge much less, so you need much more penetration for that same amount of revenue. So just wrapping up this video, I think Palantir is a much longer play if you want that smaller to medium sized business additional total addressable market. And I know some people are definitely not willing to hold on to a stock for 20 years. That's very difficult to do, but I think that is how long it could take, probably a little less than that, for this more medium to small size business to play out. And maybe I'm totally off on that, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But 3 things I want you to take away from this video. Palantir is well on its way to achieving a significant portion of its $120 billion total addressable market. That market is actually even higher, including the AWS, IBM, and such partnerships. Number 2, Palantir can significantly increase its TAM. But number 3, that will not happen for a long while. Palantir's focused, they're resource constrained, there are only so many good engineers that they can get, and so much stock-based compensation that they can supply. So at this present moment, I think it is only fair to value Palantir based on what they have said. And what they've said is that they're going after an enterprise TAM of these 6,000 companies with $500 million or more in potential revenue. So how close is Palantir to achieving that goal? They've got not even a couple hundred enterprise clients at this point, so some significant upside. But I'm very much looking forward to Palantir on the Q2 call explaining the future ahead of it. So I hope this video was insightful. Drop a like if it was. Until next time.